नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो वैरियाणं नमो वच्छायाणं नमो लोये सर्वसाहूणं येषु पञ्चनमोक्कारो सर्वपावपणासनो मङ्गलाणं च सर्वेसिं परमं भवै मङ्गलम् नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वज्रायाणं नमो लोये सवसाहूणं येषु पञ्चनमोक्कारो सर्वपावपणासनो मङ्गलाणं च सर्वेसिं परमं भवै मङ्गलम् दर्शनं देवदेवस्य दर्शनं पापनाशनं दर्शनं स्वर्गसोपानां दर्शनं मोक्षसाधनम् जय तु नित्यं परमोपकारी श्री गुरुदेव जय तु नित्यं परमोपकारी श्री गुरुदेव जय तु नित्यं परमोपकारी श्री गुरुदेव. All right. આરાધનનું મૂલજસ આત્મભાવ છે તીને ન પછે આત્મા ન પદમાહી તે. So we started with Napad and then Napad, and from Napad we said we would do 3 sessions for Samyak, Darshan, Gyaan and Chaaritra. So today is the last on Samyak Chaaritra. So earlier we had defined Chaaritra is to use MVK to go towards true nature. Any questions? Today is the last session, so I was hoping everybody would have questions, and that's what we would do. 2 सेशंस पहले के जो किए उसमें से कोई क्वेश्चन है? Or any other? Yeah, Rishi? Oh, okay. I thought you unmuted, so you might have a question. Amita ji, Didi. So, okay. Samyak Darshan, we define, how did we define Samyak Darshan as? What is Samyak Darshan? So if you don't have questions, then I will have to ask questions, which might be harder. So it might be better for you to ask. So what is Samyak Darshan? Yeah. नहीं याद. What is Samyak Gyaan? So I did have a little bit of a misunderstanding. I felt that Cheni is like a knife or a sword. So that's the image we use. But then last time Didi clarified, so I looked it up also. So it's the idea is similar. It's also a instrument to cut through. So it's a chisel basically. So with Samyak Gyaan, we want to cut out the unwanted portion, which is the not me or the anatma, and leave the portion that we are, that I am. So that's what we said. Gyaan, Samyak Gyaan, the Vivek gun that is synonymous with Gyaan, is to discriminate. And once we discriminate, right, so that's the advantage of discriminating, of the right discrimination. Right? So once we discriminate, we think that is not ours, we create a distance from it. And once we create a distance, then automatically the interest in that fades. So it's kind of a very ऐसे देखो तो it's a very simple thing in a way, as long as it has the backing of the knowledge. So mostly our problem is that we first try to um, artificially leave the stuff without the backing of knowledge. So then it can create problem, right? If internally, if I still am attracted to something, and externally, if somebody tells me, or if I think that, hey, in order to be looked upon as a dharmic person, as a religious person, I should not be indulging in this, then that becomes hard. But if on the basis of the knowledge, on the basis of the vivek, the discriminating capability of knowledge, if I, from within, if I can come to the realization that, hey, this is not going to help me, then automatically my interest in that would go down. And if that reduces, then it will also show up in the behavior. Yeah, Rishi.
So then the question I would have is like, so then is it always the case that first knowledge and then change in behavior comes? Or is there no scenario where you first change the behavior and then gain the knowledge behind that behavior change?
So that we kind of took, it's a good question. So we took that in last, when we were talking about Samyag Gyaan. So really, and actually that might be good to even go back to that nice kadi from Shripal Ras. So this one, Sakal Kriyano Mula Te Shraddha, Tehano Mula Je Kahiye, Te Jnana Nit Nit Vandiye, Te Vina Kaho Kim Rahiye. So what they are saying is that the basis of all behavior is Shraddha or Ruchi. Ruchi, Anuyayi, Virya. We mentioned that last time also. That I would be inclined to do things that are of interest to me. Right? That once I see that, hey, this is something that is going to benefit me, I automatically would be interested. So that is the faith portion. So I have faith that, hey, the money that I get after working for 2 weeks in my job is going to help me, and therefore I will automatically get up every day and go to work or log in from home. So that is the root. But here what they are saying is that even where would that faith, so faith is something, the Shraddha or the Ruchi part comes from our intrinsic, so that's like an intrinsic thing. It mainly comes from our perspective, our worldview. And that worldview is something that we have built over a period of time, like not just in this lifetime, but over a series of lifetime. And if you want to boil it down further, essentially, it comes into, it can be distilled, or it can be reduced to the samyas, the instincts, because the instincts are something that we have been doing in each and every, no matter whether I was born as a human or as an animal or even as a heavenly being, those instincts were always with me. And so therefore majority of our behavior is driven by instincts. So only difference, if you really think about it, the only difference between animals and us is that we have codified the instincts with the societal norms, right? So social norms, because we are living in because we are living in a society, we are living in civilization. All it is doing is saying, hey, okay, you cannot just be associating yourself with any and every, if for a guy, every woman, right? So therefore, the institution of marriage, which is basically just codifying, which is basically putting a social norm, might sound a little bit extreme, but at the heart of it, that is kind of what is happening. Right? Then we can even we can say further on that even marriage can be viewed from the lenses of the dharam, which is a different thing. But for the most part, that is what it is. Similarly, hunger, you just don't eat at all times. So 3 meals is what typically everybody has, and so on. So unless we come out of that, right? So knowledge, Samyak Gyan, is giving us a different worldview. It's presenting us a different lenses, basically. Right? So if we start looking at the world from those lenses, so we want to overcome the Sangnya with the help of the Agnya Dharam of Bhagwan. So Bhagwan gave us um, this Shrut Dharam, which is all the knowledge of the, primarily knowledge of the Tattva, and then how to put Tattva into practice. So that would be the Chaaritra Dharam. That is one way to think of Chaaritra. And therefore, but so we use our knowledge to um, align our faith, our Shraddha, our Ruchi to that of Bhagwan's worldview. So that is how we had defined knowledge, right? So therefore knowledge kind of comes first, but the goal of the knowledge is to um, it's just not knowledge for knowledge's sake, right? Meaning like, hey, okay, I read all, and I kind of mentioned that last time also. Okay, just knowing all 45 agams, for example, even though that's a lot of knowledge, but even then, it is not enough. If uh, the purpose behind the knowledge is not known. So the purpose of knowledge is to know thyself, to know ourselves. And in fact, like I thought of it after last time session, but a marvelous, uh, I believe the source is Agam, but it comes in Samyasar, it comes in Adhyatma Gita, it probably might even come in Muhopadhyayji's writing. But essentially, the definition of Shrut Kevli. So Shrut Kevli is defined in two ways. Shrut Kevli is, so we all of us would probably know that Bhadrabhav Swami, Acharya Bhadrabhav Swami was the last Shrut Kevli, meaning he was the last Mahatma who knew all the 14 Purvas. So typically that's the definition of Shrut Kevli, is one who knows all the Purvas. And basically if somebody knows all the Purva, then they know all the knowledge that was um, indirectly, that was spoken by Bhagwan. So all the spoken knowledge. So Bhagwan gave that knowledge to the Gandhars, and Gandhars composed the Dwadashangi. So basically that's what the 14 Purvas is like, the Dwadashang. So that's the entire corpus of knowledge. Everything else is then elaboration of that. So commentaries and explanations and discussions are all on that. So a Purvadhar is one who knows this, the Dwadashang, and Shrut Kevli is one who is a Purvadhar. So basically that's what Shrut Kevli, that's one definition of Shrut Kevli. But another definition of Shrut Kevli is one who know themselves. So one who knows their true nature, one who have experienced their true nature, are also a Shrut Kevli. And it's a remark, I feel like it's a very remarkable thing, because on one hand, you have like tons and tons, right? There is this whole visual metaphor given, the amount of ink that would be, amount of number of elephants that would be required, like the weight of ink in terms of the number of elephants that would be required to write the 14 Purvas. It's a big amount, right? 2 raised to 13. And that, so you can imagine, right? It's like probably we used to, when we teach to the youths, we tell them that, hey, like think of it like all the books that are in the OSU library, or that are in all the libraries in Columbus. It's a huge amount of knowledge. But why do we need to learn, or why would somebody need to learn all of that? The purpose of that is one and only one. It is to know oneself. It is to know one's true nature. So therefore, somebody, and there are several instances in agam also of these, where the most famous is of Mashtush Muni, who hardly knew anything from a I should say, who quote unquote, who hardly knew anything, meaning like he could not even remember uh, a simple one line shlok that his guru gave him. And yet he was able to reach to Keval Gyan. He was able to get Keval Gyan. So why is that? Because if he knew that, hey, who I am, once he knew who he is, that is what purpose of knowledge is. Right? So purpose of so ultimate knowledge is basically the Keval Gyan, which Bhagwan, Arihant and Siddh Bhagwan would have. Samyak Gyan, we think of it as more of a means. So it's a tool. It's a tool that can take us to know ourselves. And that's why the importance of Samyak Gyan. Because without Gyan, it's very, very hard. It's almost impossible. What Bhagwan said is so out of this world that it's impossible for somebody to just conceive of it by themselves. Right? So even though there could be like a great scientist like Einstein and whosoever you would think of, when they can sit in the labs and come up with great theories and all of that, but it's almost impossible to come up with the perspective of Dharam, because the foundation of that is something that is not visible to the senses, right? Like the nature of soul is such that it's not grasped, it cannot be grasped by senses, and therefore by the mind, and therefore by the thoughts. So it is beyond the mind, beyond the speech. And that's why one has to get it from the Gyan that Bhagwan gave through the means of a guru. And that's what we mentioned in the. So Samyak Darshan is to realize who I am, right? So self-realization in English is another word for Samyak Darshan. क्या कुछ are you trying to say something, Mahendra ji or Amita ji? If not, you can, I'll just mute you. So that is what we mentioned for Samyak Darshan. So Samyak Darshan is to, and even there, we can take the same approach, right? So why do we do Darshan of Bhagwan? So we do Darshan of Bhagwan because Bhagwan is the most concrete, Bhagwan is a concrete form of who I am. It's the most helpful, what would be the, it's the most helpful alamban, it's the most helpful tool, for lack of a better word, to make us realize who I am. That's why we keep the Pratimaji of Bhagwan. That's why we do Darshan of Bhagwan. That's why we do Puja of Bhagwan and all of that. That's why we build temples.
I think Rishi's question was that if one were to start with change in behavior, would that lead to change in understanding?
Right. So the what I was trying to say is that it's very, very hard to start from the behavior, right? Because you would not know. You need to start with the right behavior. So right behavior, the foundation of right behavior would be right interest. And the foundation of right interest is right knowledge. And that's why we went to this Gatha.
But if we think about like all that we learn, we start from childhood. And at that time, we do not have the knowledge or the real understanding, but whatever we learn as children, it shapes our behavior and makes it easier for us to follow later on in life. Right? So
depends,
taking breath or following, simple rules, regulations, all there is food, dietary restrictions, those kind of things.
Right. So that is the approach in the system currently. And mainly because if somebody is like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, it's very difficult to teach them, right? To like give them like theoretically what is Nav Tattva, for example. So for such, for Balaji or for the children, the goal there is if they can establish some relationship with an entity that is beyond the worldly figures that they would see, then later on, the Guru Bhagwans can leverage that, can capitalize on that, and then give them the build upon that. So that's the only thing is like because there is malleability in behavior when one is a kid. So therefore, if they can just get this much that hey, there is this somebody, some Bhagwan that is like very powerful, that is all knowing, and if they can have that little bit of faith that hey, that is something, somebody to look up to, then later on so the idea is not that hey, if they started, for example, like my mom was a very stickler for this, like she would not let us drink or eat anything in the morning before we go to do puja. So my sister and I, we used to run, and like you can imagine, right, our goal was just to like touch Bhagwan and go back home. So it was hardly like there was no sort of respect in that sense, right? We would fatafat do and go back home. But she did that, and so somehow later on in life that helped me. So, but if even now, if I think that hey, okay, I should not be doing Okarsi, I should not be eating anything or drinking anything before I do puja, and if I just do that, if I just keep doing puja for my entire life without knowing who is Dev, who is Guru, who is Dharam, the puja that I'm doing of who is that, then it does not help a whole lot, right? So that's the pitfall of the behavior. If you just do behavior, if you just do kriya without the understanding, then that kriya is not going to take us too far. And actually, just one thing, in the Digambaramnya, they do have a slightly different approach. So even for kids, they do emphasize from a fairly early age the understanding of tattva. And now I think even in some of the Shwetambar Guru Bhagwans have also started going in that direction, because as we in school, kids are learning so much even when they are at a young age, right? So the whole level of intelligence has also changed, and people have moved more from faith to logic based mentality. So we are seeing changes there too. Yeah, Anish, right?
Yeah, I just had a question about so like like about Samyag Gyaan, like we say it's like right knowledge, right? But it's been like it's now like 2,500 years out of Mahavir Swami's Nirvana. More than 2,500 years. So, and it took them maybe like 300 years to write down the agams on like leaves. So like how is it even like how would you even know what Samagyan is then? Like
So actually I don't know, maybe I don't think I saw you early on, so perhaps you may have joined a little bit late. So I don't know if you were there when I was explaining to Rishi my question that were you there when we talked about Shrut Kevli, the two ways to think about Shrut Kevli?
yeah, to know you said to know
Right.
yourself, right? And then to know the 14 Purvas. Yeah.
So Samyak Jnana is not just so what you are saying, right? If and I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but if I got the drift, it's you're saying that hey, we don't, whatever is in the agams that are available to us, whatever is in the religious books that is available to us, the authenticity of that is questionable because it was not something that was written 2500 years back or 25, 50 plus years back when Bhagwan was there. Right? Is that where you were going?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then that's kind of not a relevant question actually, right? Because it's not it's not just that Bhagwan was so all of us probably would not have difficulty in accepting that Bhagwan was omniscient, Tirthankar Bhagwan, so Mahavir Swami Bhagwan, the last Tirthankar, and therefore what he knew was the ultimate knowledge. But it's not like that after him nobody else knew nothing, right? So Bhagwan gave it to his disciples, the Gandharva ones, so Guru Gautam Swami, Sudharma Swami, and other 9. And then they pass. We kind of mentioned that also last time, right? So it's the whatever knowledge we have even today is through the tradition of Guru Shishya. And in fact, if you think even more deeply about it, and this was probably mentioned by I think Gurudev Shri, that the agams were written, you said 300, but my understanding is it's even later than that. Probably I would say 700, 800 years after Bhagwan's Nirvan. So before that, the knowledge was passed, right, in an oral tradition. And because of that, there is less likelihood of somebody misinterpreting, misunderstanding, or somebody that may not have the capability to know and still have access to that. So there were a lot of good benefits of that oral tradition. And because of that, they would always, so if you think about it, right, it was always available, just like we have our phones with us all the time. They had the knowledge with them all the time. And now, because we start to rely on books, so a lot of stuff even we keep forgetting. So anyway, the point is that in the tradition, the knowledge was held by people who knew who they were, right? And therefore, that is the key thing. As long as the guru, right, as long as the guru who is passing the knowledge are enlightened one, they themselves are self-realized, then whatever they pass would be Samyag Gyaan.
But
The problem comes only.
Well, why would there be sects then? There would only be one Jain religion then. No, like Nigam or Shweta.
Correct. Yeah. So the sects are basically more of an organizational thing, right? So you can to give, I don't know how much you will be able to relate to this example, but the example that comes to mind is that, hey, in a company, why are people reporting to other people, right? Why don't they just report to the CEO? Or why is the marketing organization separate from the finance organization, separate from the IT organization?
That's still one organization.
Yeah. So similarly, it's just one organization. But over times, there are not so. Not everybody's level is same, and then over time, as the time that we are living in is actually not just as the Dusham Kal, the 5th era, but also it's the Hunda Avsarpini, right? There is a term, so it's one of those rare times when a lot of abuses happen. And we can see traces of that even from fairly early on, right? So the classic example of Stulibhadraji, who was extremely learned, and yet even he got the thought that, hey, let me try to impress my sisters. So right from that point onwards, right, that was like just in Bhadrabha's time, which was about just roughly 150 years after Bhagwan's Nirvan. So we can see that there are this, and then that just got become worse and worse and worse. But what I was trying to highlight is that even today, there are self-realized gurus, and there is what we have still has the capability to take us to our true nature if leveraged correctly. So the onus is on us, and it's not fair to say that, hey, I don't know what you are giving me. So, for example, just the shlok that I'm sharing right now, right, that is from Napat Puja that was composed by Devchandra ji just about 300 years back. So, if you were to question that, hey, in his time, how he may not have, what would have he known, what would have he gotten from the agams that Bhagwan gave, then I think that's basically that's just being argumentative, right? And that doesn't lead to any anything beneficial. So if somebody wants to just take on an argumentative stance and question and criticize everything, then yeah, it's possible. There's no point in even trying to convince them. But if somebody says that, hey, what I have even today, what we have is the human birth is the extremely hard to get. And on top of that, to be able to even hear such concepts is extremely hard. And on top of that, to have interest is extremely hard, right? So we have come a long way. And now if we get stuck on trivial things and not leverage what we have, then that would be kind of to our detriment. So I probably gave a very winded thing, but long and winded response. So you can, if you have follow-up questions, you can, or comments, you can mention.
No, yeah, I understand. The gist of it is just, I guess, to basically just study what you have, I guess, and not, because if you I guess if you ask too many questions, you wouldn't really be able to do anything. So.
So there is nothing wrong actually in asking questions. Asking questions are good. But what is the motive? What is the purpose behind, right? So there are, classically you can say, right, there are two reasons why people ask question. One is to prove that, hey, I know more than you, and what you are saying is wrong. And so their whole motive is questionable. And that's a detrimental motive. So, but if we say that, hey, I'm going to start, my starting point is that, hey, what we have today is correct, is right, is the cream, the essence of all knowledge that is available in the world to know oneself. So I'll start with that as my starting assumption, starting hypothesis. And then whatever I don't understand, I'm going to ask questions so that I can come to that conclusion with my own understanding.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking more of in a in a scientific reasoning way. You have to disprove every statement, and then if you don't find any evidence for the contradiction, then it's most likely true. So for example, if there you can say that the soul does not exist, and you can find evidence that the soul does not exist. If you can't find evidence, then you can't say the soul does not exist.
Yeah, but so any scientist, right? Any scientist starts with an hypothesis, which is basically their bias, right? So they say that, hey, okay, I believe this is how this thing is working, or I believe this is how the I can think of a small example, but like how the universe is, or I believe this is how matter is working, or whatever, right? So there is that starting based on whatever they have learned. They come to an hypothesis, and then they would collect empirical evidence to prove, or even what do you say, like mathematically or philosophically, right? Come up with logical arguments to prove their point of view. But and both of us, Neha and I, we were PhD students, so we have been in touch with professors, and we kind of have seen the system. I don't know anybody that starts in a very neutral way, right? Like no, the starting point itself, we can call it, it's a hypothesis, but it's basically a bias, right? So they say, hey, and then everything that they do would be to try to prove it, right? So even if I did the first experiment and it did not work out to how I believe, I would not immediately give up my hypothesis, right? I would think that, hey, okay, what is it that I did wrong in the experiment? How can I modify what I did, and so on. So anyway, I mean, we don't need to sort of go into so much detail, but my point is very simple, right? That hey, if I take what Bhagwan has given as my starting hypothesis, and then in my own experiences, in a day-to-day experiences, how do I reinforce that? That's the best way. That's the most wisest way to leverage what we have, and that's how majority of people have gained from doing that. Because that's truly how we make it our own, right? Because if I can in my daily experiences, right, if Bhagavan said that, hey, the nature of this, I don't know if you were in the Bar Bhavna, but in the 12 Bhavnas, the first thing we said was, hey, everything is anitya, everything is perishing, everything is dying, decaying. Now, if I take that and apply that in my daily experiences, then that becomes more real for me. Then it's not just that because Bhagwan said it, and that is fine to do. Nobody is saying, no guru will tell you that, hey, I am telling you this and therefore accept it. In fact, this is the preferred method, or the best method, is to say, hey, okay, here is the thing, here is your starting point, and now based on your own experiences, you confirm that this is true for you. So you make it your own.
Right. I mean, so like one of the main points of Jainism compared to all other faiths in the world, it is basically free from contradictions on the most part. Like, for example, like Jesus he says you shouldn't kill, but then he feeds fish to people who are like hungry, thus like killing fish. So like there's like contradictions in other religions, but Jainism is generally free from contradictions because like Maharishi conduct, based on the stories that we have, is not really contradictory. But if you have contradictory statements in the scriptures, then it's a different story, because then you have to compare and contrast.
Right, but again, what may appear as contradictory. So, there is a context to statements. So, what may appear contradictory to us, right, is because if we interpret that statement in a certain way and interpret the other statement in a contradictory way, then yeah, we can say, hey, okay, these two statements are contradicting. But if the context of that statement is understood, like in what context, right, which is basically the entire Nayavad. I don't know, you may have heard the word Nay. So that is basically the Anekantvad is sort of a derivation out of that, but fundamentally it's the Syadvad aspect of, so because truth is, there are infinite truths essentially, right? Because
but like some statements, they, like for example in Digambar they say woman, they cannot attain moksha in womanhood, but Shwetambar says both can attain moksha. So those are that would be an example of like I don't know if there's other viewpoints for those statements, like. And the same thing with like Digambar, they said Kevlis, they don't eat after Kevalapyan, but Shwetambar they say, oh, they do eat.
Yeah, those can be understood by proper. So if I just because I'm a Digambar, right? If I say, hey, okay, no, women cannot, and if I'm a Shwetambar, I would say, then that doesn't really buy us a whole lot. So our goal is not to like be stuck on all this just because I belong to a certain faith or I was born in that. You are talking about Shwetambar, Digambar, but I think I mentioned that last time, or maybe in the very first session, that hey, if I was born as a Muslim, I would have not gone to a Jain temple. I would have probably gone to a mosque. So just because we are born doesn't we don't want to necessarily do out of just kulachar or because of family tradition. But if we apply, right, if we apply the proper perspective, then these statements which look contradictory can be interpreted in a correct way.
There are a lot of, I just want to add something. There are a lot of cultural aspects to some of these differences. Of course, they can be further investigated, Anish, but I feel that the Digambar sect had a lot of trouble to survive, especially in southern India. And there was a huge push towards Hinduism and a lot of questions being asked about anything that was, out of the ordinary. So I think some of the things that may have been modified could be because of the political situation or the cultural situation that a particular sect went through.
But my emphasis is going to be that hey, it doesn't really help us to hold on to these kind of statements, right? Like, so if we say that hey, Shwetambars are contradicting the Digambars, therefore I don't know, like I am not going to believe anything that the Shwetambar says, I'm not going to believe anything that the Digambar says, then that does not help us in any way, right? We are basically giving up, we are throwing away, tossing out the entire Shrutagnan that we just talked about, the importance of which. So my suggestion would be that, hey, how can I benefit from this? What is it that I can do that can benefit me? And then once ultimately we want to reach a point, right, where we can understand this from within our own, within us, right? The once we understand who I am, then a lot of truths fall into place. So since you mentioned about the eating thing, I'm going to just take that example. The way when we eat, right? So for what would be a good example? Let's say a pizza. So if I'm eating pizza, if I like pizza, right, then when I am eating pizza, I feel like, hey, this is who I'm, the one who is eating it. I'm enjoying this pizza. But in reality, I can only know the taste of pizza. So the part, right, where we corrupt the knowledge with the indulgence part. That is where our mistake is. To somebody that is wise, it's very clear that hey, I'm not the one who is eating. So I did not even use the word Bhagwan, right? So I said wise. So even a Mahatma, even somebody that is on a 6th or 7th Gunasthanak would have that clarity when they are eating. So essentially, if you think about it, when a Jnani is eating, when a wise person is eating, it is as if they are watching somebody else eating. There's not a whole lot of difference between me watching you eating, for example, versus when a Jnani is eating, they watching their body as somebody that is eating. So in that sense, if we think of Bhagwan also in that sense, then it's very clear, right? That hey, Bhagwan is not really eating, because when we say somebody is eating, we mean that they are enjoying the taste out of eating. Right? When you say that hey, I ate this, I would not interpret that to say that hey, Anish saw himself as eating the pizza. So for us mere mortals or worldly people, that's how we define eating. But for Bhagwan, that's not how it is. So does that make sense, or is it too?
So I mean, for a Kevali,
Hmm.
if a person has Keval and they're a Samanya Kevali,
Hmm.
then it would make sense for them to just end their life eventually in like a Sandekana. Because they have everything they need for Nirvana. So
Yeah. So again, yeah, you're right. So once somebody attained Kevali, their work is done. However, that
and
is
I
also
read somewhere
another.
also that Kevalis, I don't know which text, but Kevalis can absorb nutrients to their skin. I don't know what that's called, but
That is not actually that is true for all of us. So it's not just Kevali. All of us, it's the food that we eat deliberately. That's one form of eating, but through our body, we are constantly, through the pores, we are constantly eating as well. Uh, so that is sort of an involuntary act of eating, which is not really in our control so much, and therefore it's not that I would say that harmful. Right? The harm comes in the in all the interest, in all the passions that goes into eating. Right? So and therefore you can see like there's a whole worldwide market, so many different types of food, so many different types of cuisines, so many like such I don't know, it's probably billions and billions of dollars that the food industry would be transacting every day. And that is not because I just want something enough to keep my body to survive, right? Because if that was the case, then we would not have this billions of dollars of food industry. So that is the part which is the wrong part. But what you were saying, when a Kevali, so whether it's Samanya Kevali, even Tirthankar Bhagwan, right? When Tirthankar Bhagwan got Kevali Jnana, their work is done. But because people learn and people see the behavior, the outside, the external part, therefore, the more knowledgeable somebody is, the more higher price they put on their external conduct. Because they don't want people to misinterpret, to be misled. And therefore, even though the Kevlis can, and actually it's not as simple as what you said, because ultimately the Ayushya karma is the one that determines how many years they would live. But hypothetically speaking, even if they were to like commit suicide, they would still end up going to moksha. But then they would set a wrong example for folks. So that's why they would not do it. They would just live in a natural way, whatever remaining part of their life is left. And same with Tirthankar Bhagwan. So Tirthankar Bhagwan is also giving Deshna. Similarly, a Kevali, if somebody were to approach them and ask questions, they would also, and if Bhagwan is not there, they would also give Deshna. There's no difference in that sense. And Sandekna is a very, very different thing. Sandekna, the main premise of Sandekna is that, hey, now there is not much point in giving food to the body, because it's not helping me in any way. So that's basically when it's determined that this body is useless to me, then one starts gradually giving up the food and the water and all the other motions, and that ultimately leads to the soul going out of the body. So that's a very different notion. But otherwise, the people just would, any Gnani would just live through how so many years, and whatever they can, howsoever they can help others, they would help, and essentially through transmission of knowledge. So that's true for Bhagwan, that's true for Gandhar Bhagwans, it's true for Samanya Kevli, that's true for even the Acharyas and the Upadhyas and the Sadhus today. It's just the level of knowledge is different.
Also, one more thing to add there is that once there is Keval Gnan, and even like on the path of Keval Gnan, some jeev that is close to that level, there would be no effort. There would be no forcible way in which they would change the nature of anything. So, even doing, like you said, they could do Sunday Gnan, they wouldn't force anything to change the course of events or anything. They don't have any doership left.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And actually, I would say that not just that, but the notion of doership starts fading away right from the fourth gun sthana. So it's not even before somebody accepts monkhood, like in the sense of the gun sthana, in the true sense of the monk. Because the sense of doership is born out of delusion. It's born out of mithyatva. So when mithyatva goes away, the sense of doership also goes away. Yeah. You were trying to say something, Anish?
No, yeah. I mean, I get that, but I don't know. I think it's just very difficult to even grapple with Keval Gnan because it's like it's just so far away. So
in some sense, it's the nearest thing to us because it is within us.
In distance, but it's so far away in terms of time, maybe. So
no, it's right here and now. So the distance is something that we are creating, and it's not just you. I'm in the same boat as you in that sense, right? The distance is what we are creating because I don't accept who I am, because I cannot relate with who I am, right? Therefore, I think, oh, this Keval Gyan is so far away. And if it still feels like, hey, it's so far away, then okay, fine, start with Samyak Gyan. Do you think Samyak Gyan is far away, or that's closer?
yeah, it's definitely much closer. So
so then don't worry, right? So somebody who gets Samyak Gyan would eventually get Keval Gyan, and the beauty of it is that once you get Samyak Gyan, then like Neha just said, we will automatically go in the effortless track. So then we don't even need to worry. So only thing that we need to put efforts on is to get Samyak Gyan. And you already said that you can relate with that. So that's good. So I'm not sure what, like you asked a lot of questions, and I appreciate your curiosity. But my 2 cents of advice to you, of suggestion to you would be that, yeah, let's just focus on what we can do for ourselves, because it's the curiosity that you have is rare, but we don't want to just make it more like a skeptic, right? So there's a difference between a skeptic and a seeker or an inquiring mind. So, right. So we want to develop the jignasa, we want to develop the inquisitiveness, and maybe even that's not the right English translation, but I hope you get what I'm trying to convey. And we want to build it, because the rarest of rare thing is to know oneself. And that's what we have not done. Like some of the questions that you are asking me, the stuff that I'm saying, I would have probably said that same thing in my past lives. You would have probably asked the same questions in your past life. You would have probably even understood all of that. So in some sense, all of this spoken sort of knowledge without any without the grounding in true faith is not new. So therefore, what is apurva, what is something that has never happened before, is this self-realization. That's the Samyak Darshan. And that's what we want to aspire for. We want to use everything that we have, and we have a ton of great stuff, as I already mentioned before. So we want to use all of that to get to self-realization. That should be our goal. That's the purpose behind even having these sessions, and before also when we did the Uday sessions and all of that. Ultimate purpose is that only, that hey, if once we realize who we are, then from that point onwards, everything kind of falls easily into the place. The hardest part is to get to this point of realizing who I am. So how are we doing on time? Okay, we are 1 minute past. So anything else you want to quickly mention?
Just give a one-liner on what is Samyak Charitra.
Okay, exactly. So I'll give a picture and a one-liner on what is Samyak Charitra. Samyak Charitra is the watcher on the hill. So hopefully that is something that everybody can remember. One line, Samyak Darshan, one line is, I am that. And in that, the meaning of that is knowledge, Gyaan Swabhavi Atma. So soul that is full of knowledge and bliss, which is me and which is what Bhagwan is. Right. So that is one line for Samyak Darshan is I am that. One line for Samyak Gyaan is that image that we said, right? Pragnya Cheni, or the chisel. So Samyak Gyaan is that discriminating between who I am and who I am not. And one line, so once somebody stays in their true nature, which is basically to know, and if one keeps if one stops at the edge of this hill of knowing and doesn't go into the what do you call it, the valley of doing, basically going down, then one is doing Samyak Charitra. So Samyak Charitra is to be still in one's true nature, to be just at the level of knowing. And that itself, knowing itself, is bliss. And we kind of had mentioned that before, I think last time. So knowledge is bliss, comes from that. The problem that comes for us is that we are never on the stage of knowledge. We go into the stage of doing, and doing is where the whole sansar, whole world comes out of that. So remarkably, most of our, this I think Muktidhar Maharaj or somebody, some Mahatma had mentioned this in their pravachans, that if you think about it, most of the Jains tirths, pilgrim spots, are on hills. And other religion are like Hindu, for example, are mostly near the rivers, the banks of rivers. So symbolically, that what they are trying to say is that, hey, we want to rise above all the all the chaos that is happening at the ground level, right? So I want to sit on the hill and just know, just see, not get affected by it. Our problem is that we never, even though we go to Palitana multiple times, we don't stay at Palitana at any given time, meaning we get impacted, even though we could be, we should be on Palitana and not get impacted by all the chaos, all the noises and sounds and screams that are happening at the Taleti, at the ground level. That's what we should be doing, right? So even in my daily behavior, I should be sitting at the top and just watching things that are going on. And that is, for that Samyak Charitra, we the Munis take the 5 Mahavrats and the Shravak takes the 12 Anuvrats. So that is the goal. The Vrats, the vows, the great vows, and the vows of the layman or the Shravak are to reach to that goal of being still in oneself. And it happens on the 7th Gunsthanak, when one's focus is completely within oneself. Right? So that also, another word for that is nirvikal avastha. And then it just keeps increasing as one goes higher in the Gunsthanak. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then somebody is Kevli, they would be nirvikal for the rest of their existence. So with that, if there are any other questions we can take, otherwise this will bring an end to our 3 sessions on Samyak, Darshan, Gyaan, Chaaritra. If I said anything against Bhagwan's wishes, Bhagwan's Agnya, then Michhami Dukkanam. And if I said anything that hurt anybody, then Michhami Dukkanam. Shivmastu sarva jagatah arahita nirta bhavantu bhutagana dosha prayantu nasham sarvatra sukhi bhavatu lokah. Mangalam Bhagavan Viro, Mangalam Gautam Prabhu, Mangalam Stuli Bhadradya, Jaina Dharmostu Mangalam. Mangalam Bhagavan Viro, Mangalam Gautamo Gani, Mangalam Kunda Kundadhya, Jaina Dharmostu Mangalam. Sarva Mangal Mangalyam, Sarva Kalyana Karanam, Pradhanam Sarva Dharmanam, Jainam Jaiti Sashanam. Chaaritra, everyone.
It was a good session, Rakesh bhai. It was a little eye-opening for me. बहुत ज़्यादा ज्ञान मिल गया ना, अभी समझ में नहीं आ रहा माथे में क्या है और क्या नहीं है.
अच्छा, आप एकदम स्थिर हो गए हो तो that's good. You are sitting on the top of the hill.
No, I'm not sitting on the top.
No,
I never thought there's Darshan Gyaan Charitra in this way, na? So ये थोड़ा सा eye-opening है. Let's see how far we can, go
so
with
think
it.
about it. We have also recorded. You can watch the recording, and
Yes,
a lot of stuff
that would be
I've
good.
said is probably not something that would have made sense right away. So that would be my suggestion. If it was of interest to you, listen to the recording and then ask more questions, and we can figure out how to do that.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Bharti ji, aapko kuch, if you have any questions or anything.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to say Jai Jinendra, thank you. I was waiting for Amita ji to be done. Yes, your suggestion on listening to the recording definitely makes sense. I've done a few times before. Now, off late, I haven't done, but it makes a difference when you listen to something a second time. Even the sessions we had with
the Uday group, the 12 Bhavnas.
Yes, and with I'm forgetting his name. Sorry, what?
With some others, Champak bhai or no, Paresh bhai, I don't know.
No, the sessions that you arranged, and a few times he did in Hindi and then switched over to Gujarati. So the Hindi ones I listened again, and it made more sense. Shrenik bhai, I'm so sorry. It just my mind went blank. Yes. So yeah, listening to something, because these are so abstract that you think you understand, but then you listen to it a second time, then it makes a little more sense. And so that's how it goes. Yeah.
That is true. But I mean, the good thing is all of us have a logical mind, and that's kind of the approach I try to take, that logically how we can make sense of Dharam. And that's the beauty of our Dharam, is that everything can be understood from a logical perspective. It's just that we have not taken that approach before. So so when you have any questions, we can, if we can't answer, we can certainly find other knowledgeable people that can get us the answer. So the onus is all on us, how much we can spend our time and get more and more interested in this.
Right, agree. Yeah,
thank you. Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra.